Whoa. Stop right there. This is Brad in the edit room. Just have to give you a quick warning that this does contain some very adult themes and some very adult language. It's a fascinating conversation, goes in some really wacky directions, but there is a need for a disclaimer, so continue at your own risk. Welcome to In Conversation with Brad Wendes. Another great guest this week. This one coming all the way from Idaho in the United States of America. So we've got a crazy time difference. I'm actually in the future. It's evening for me, lunchtime for him. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Chris Phillips, fantastic filmmaker. Chris, welcome on. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So obviously my name's Chris Phillips. I am a video producer and director. I'm from Essex in England, born in Braintree about 42 years ago. And so I live here in Boise, Idaho, which is sort of like the Whittam or Chelmsford of America. Like no one's really heard of it, but it's okay. It's quite nice, not too bad. And I've been sort of creating video content, as the kids say, for, about 25 years now. Do all sorts of stuff. Did a lot of broadcast entertainment when I was younger. Still do a little bit of that now. Moved into doing commercials, a little bit of corporate stuff. And then I have some, silly hobby projects that keep me busy. I live here with my partner, and we've got two kids. I've got a 15-year-old stepdaughter, and then a 7-year-old boy. They keep getting older, so I keep getting confused how old they are. But yeah.
I mean, I've just got one, and it's difficult enough to keep track of. That's fascinating. Yeah. But so, what got you into filmmaking in the first place? Was that something you wanted to do? Did you do it at school? What got you involved?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I used to sort of just watching TV. There was a lot of sort of behind the scenes of how cartoons are made. And one of my favorite shows was this local TV show called Nightmare, which was made by Anglia Television. And it's a sort of Dungeons and Dragons type of show. And the kid is basically in a weather studio on a blue screen. And then they've got paintings of all these like fantastical castle locations behind them. And, and that as a kid was really cool. But then I realized that, wait, the kid's not really in the castle. It's a special effect, And so I sort of got into it from that side of things, being interested in it. And then my dad got a camcorder when we were younger. And I figured if I put it on the side, it looked like I was walking up the wall if I was crawling along the floor. And I'm only about 6-7 years old at this time. So that kind of hooked me in. And then I just sort of, started making videos when I was a teenager, bought my own camcorder. I used to do car washing at the weekend. So I'd get on my bike, bucket and a sponge, ride around Braintree, saving up money for a camera and a computer. And then, just got into it when I was about 15 years old. And back then, obviously, these days, obviously kids record stuff all the time. But back then I would be like the only kid in the school who was recording everything, So I was a bit of a nerd. And then did like tape to tape video editing, which is where you didn't have a computer couldn't handle video back then. So you had to have two VCRs and record from one to the other to like edit, which is a bit of a mental process. And then eventually, as I was like 18, 19, the internet was getting big, and I went to college in Bournemouth for a few years, and then sort of just moved on from there, making music videos and things like that. And then eventually came back to Essex, and then started working in little TV gigs, little web stuff. And then I worked for MTV for Viacom in London, in Camden, for about 10, 15 years. I still work for them quite a lot, freelance. And that was sort of my main in, was doing that stuff. And then, just did a lot of like music entertainment, and got involved in that world. And then did a lot of hobby fan films. And, I've always been interested in martial arts. I did like karate when I was a teenager. And so I'm sure at some point I've filmed you in a silly mask doing backflips or something, Brad. I don't know.
I've got some great memories of emo rangers, and I think we'll touch on that a bit. But like you talked about music videos there. So I'm going to jump back from it because I think like I'm a tiny bit younger than you, not a lot, but a little bit. And I remember when I was starting out, like my performance career, we would do a lot of music videos, and music videos used to be quite big business. And that seems to like be completely dead now. Music videos are so low budget for the most part, unless you're talking big stars. Like, is there still a market there?
I think I think there is a market. I think, one of the things is that adults don't see a lot of the video content that does get made in terms of music videos because they're not interested in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if someone you was really into when you were 17 is very different when you look at it from the eyes of a 40-year-old or whatever, So I think I don't think there's ever been really any money in it unless you were doing the big stuff. And it was just that when we were younger, we would put up Working for $50, and because a few thousand people saw it, we thought that was a big deal.
That's true, actually. Yeah, they'd bung you 100 quid for the day, and you're like, yeah, great.
Yeah, if anything, I'd say on YouTube, music videos are fairly popular. Obviously, it is the typical record label stuff that would get the most views, but I think it's diversified. Obviously, a lot of video content that artists make is now sort of social media stuff, and it's not the traditional music video. So I'd agree with you that the focus on specific music videos has sort of dropped off. And also that it's got easier to make. I'll quite frequently come across epic, beautiful, amazing music videos online, even with a signed recording artist, a small artist, but signed to a record label. And I have like 600 views on it, and I'm like, this would have won an MTV award 20 years ago, and now no one's seen it. As a video producer, if you were just trying to make music videos for local bands now, I don't think you'd make any money. But I didn't really make any money out of it doing it 20 years ago either, so I don't know if that's changed.
But I guess you said there about it being accessible, and I guess there's two sides to that. Like, from a business point of view, the fact that anyone can just go out and film something on an iPhone with a little lav mic, or like the Rode mics that you've got, or the I got the DJI like mics I use for recording sometimes. The barrier to entry is so low. Does that make it harder to be a professional with a studio and those kind of things? And on the other side of that, because anyone can do it and everyone is doing it, does that push the quality up, or does it bring the quality down? What do you think?
Interesting. I actually think my experience is that the market for video content, for paid video content, is much bigger than it used to be. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is that only back 25 years ago, 20 years ago, only TV broadcasters and feature film productions hired and needed good video production, right? Like you're either on TV. There was maybe a smaller sort of home VHS market for certain types of videos, like workout videos, things like that. But now a lot of companies do video marketing, right? Like, so say you're a local flower shop, and I'm just taking this to the basic level. Yeah. You may well want video content, and you'd be willing to pay for decent video content. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, that market wouldn't have existed. They'd have been taking ads out in the local paper or something like that. So I think that market has shifted. I think there is a lot more competition, but the market is sort of a lot of people. I frequently come across people who will be like, "Oh, I make videos as well." I'll be like, "Oh, what do you do?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I do weddings and christenings and local commercials or whatever." And that didn't exist as like a paid thing that you could earn a living from years ago. Although, I think it does mean that there's more of a market for like frustrated filmmakers or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people, I meet a lot of people that are like, I want to be Steven Spielberg one day, but I am only doing part-time, wedding videos, and then I also have an office job, and so. You sort of have to work a little bit harder for people to take you seriously. I think there's that, but yeah, it's a mixed bag really. I think things have changed for sure.
But any idiot with a phone and a computer can make a YouTube channel. I mean, I'm living proof of that. Like, I'm not a filmmaker, but I'm sat in here with an iPhone and a microphone talking to someone on the other side of the world. Like this is so different to when we were kids.
Totally. I mean, I would say the parkour market's probably changed as well. Like the amount of people I see on Instagram, you know, I'll follow a kid who's got, you know, over 100,000 followers, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm a parkour expert, and they're 17. And the next week they've like broke their leg. Yeah. And, you know what I mean? And like, that's it. Oh, they're done. You know, they're done. And you're like, oh, wow. Okay. And you realize that like, to do something and be popular is one thing, but to do something and be fairly popular and pay your bills with it for 20 years is like a different level of like, you know.
Yeah, and it is crazy. Like I remember you when you were significantly younger and you were doing some like the Emo Ranger fan films is what a lot of people knew you for, or even just like having your camera because you were like Chris Phillips, the filmmaker from like Chelmsford, and people, and you were like, always at the pub and there were bands playing and people would want you to film stuff, and like you had that like mid-level local fame. It's great. That's a really cool thing, and it's really awesome that 20 years on you're still making films and that's what you're doing. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting for me to think back about those sort of those days when I lived in Chelmsford 20 years ago, because I would be, you know, filming a Sugar Babes documentary in the morning, and I'd get home and I'd be filming a local band, and the local band are like giving me shit like, oh come on man, like, you know, we need better shots or whatever like that. They didn't know, like, I've just been working with Universal Records all day. And they'd be like, oh, one day we'll get a record deal. We need to find some good connections first or whatever. And I'd just be sitting there like, going, should I tell them or not? Like, you know, and it's interesting because like, it was tough to sort of balance, like, because the amount of times I wanted to sort of put one of the local bands on MTV was like so tempting. And obviously, like, you know, the amount of people that work there, like if everyone suggested their mates' bands, they'd go broke. So you'd have to, but it was good fun. I did get a few of them on there, like I don't know if you remember the Faker Modo lads, a local metal band.
Really enjoyed them. You actually got me on MTV, so I'm happy with that. Like you when the Emo Ranger stuff went on MTV. You got me on MTV. I think that might have even been my TV debut. Nice.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, because basically what Emo Rangers was, for people that are listening, of like, what the hell are they talking about? So obviously you got Power Rangers, you know, the kids' TV show, superheroes jumping around in spandex, doing martial arts, which I think we both sort of loved and were influenced by.
Oh yeah.
And I did Emo Rangers, which was, you know, 2005, 2006. You got My Chemical Romance getting big. All the kids have got floppy hair and lip piercings and all that. And so I sort of made this spoof, which was like camcorder, some visual effects, like After Effects. We made a bunch of like, it was the same year that YouTube came out, actually, 2006. So we put it out. We got big on MySpace, which was obviously the big social media at the time for all us older millennials. Oh. And so, yeah, we did that. And then obviously, you know, I used to go down the park and just film kids beating each other up in like Halloween masks.
Yeah.
And it got on TV. And this is the day where you could get things on TV without filling out 50,000 risk assessments. Although I did get into, I got in a lot of trouble at some points, but we'll, you know.
Okay, we'll
the bigger the legal department got at MTV, the more they would give me heat for that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, so I just used to, film kids jumping around in the park pretending to be superheroes. And then the next week they're on MTV and they're, to get a commission show on MTV would be a really difficult process, right? It's quite, you know, you've got to go through all these producers, everyone's got to sign it off, right? Very difficult to do. I was working in the editing department, and what I would do is I would deliver shows. So what you record it onto this beta tape and it goes in the library. And it needs a cart number, like a special code, like a barcode. And so what I did is I put Emo Rangers on these tapes, put barcodes on them and put them in the library. And then I went to MTV2 and went, oh, have you seen that funny show I did called Emo Rangers? Like, it's in the library. And so they were like, oh, is it? Oh, sweet. Well, we'll program that in between some music videos. Wicked. And so they programmed it in between some music videos because it's getting pretty popular online. It's got like 50,000 views on MySpace or whatever, you know. So they played it. they didn't realize that no legal acquisition, no check-in, no one had signed a contract. I just wandered into the building and put it in their tape library, basically. And so that's how it got on TV, because no boss commissioned it, right? And then obviously on the other side of things, I'm printing up these posters with the big MTV logo on it, Emo Rangers, blah, blah, blah. So all fantastic. And then MTV in America in New York emails one of my top bosses and he's like, oh, this sort of kids emo show thing, this funny little skit you've got on, it's really funny. Like, that's great. We'd love to play it as well. And so they're like, all right. So they go, you know, look it up on the tape library and everything. They're like, all right, okay. Where'd this come from? And so it's got my name on it. It says Chris Phillips in the credits. They're like, Chris Phillips, oh, he works here. Oh, right, okay. Oh, that's weird. He works, it's not like most shows are outside commissions and produced by an external production company. And so they're like looking at it and then sort of like, I'll go in for a meeting with them, with these producers, and sat down and they're like, so who commissioned this show? And I'm like, I did. And they're like, okay. And who are these kids getting the shit kicked out of them at a park in Chelmsford? And I'm like, just random kids. And they're like, do you even know all their names? And I'm like, they're like, how old are they? I'm like, well, they're 14, but I put masks on them so you can't tell. That's why the Hoodie Patrol's the Hoodie Patrol, because you can't see that they're 14-year-olds. And so they couldn't track who they were. And so they're all like looking at me like, yeah, I don't know if we can resell it. And anyway, I get an email from a guy called Ron Wasserman. And Ron is like, hi, I am the musician for the Power Rangers. I wrote Go Go Power Rangers. And don't need to worry. I'm not going to get you in trouble. But I just want you to know that the guys who own Power Rangers sued me because I did a gig with the Power Rangers music when they told me I wasn't allowed. So I'm just letting you know that if they see this, they might get a little bit annoyed about it. So anyway, long story short, there wasn't really any more Emo Rangers on MTV after that, but we did get a good, year and a half. This process took a year and a half to happen. So it was on every weekday night for months on end on MTV2. So
yeah, well, the first time it went out, I actually had a premiere party at my house. We had people over, we had some pizzas and some drinks. And we're like, even though the show was only like 3 minutes long, we were like, yeah, we got to watch this. Like that was a good thing. All right, so we've jumped a bit there. So you were jobbing, and I've got a memory of you coming down the park. I remember I was really hungry one day, and I'd been training, and I didn't really have any money because none of us had any money at that point. And you was like, Brad, how quickly can you eat this burger? I was like, oh, really quickly, I guess. And you're like, oh, can you just fit the camera in my face? And that was for the Burger Clown episode.
Yes, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember this now. It's all coming back to me. Yeah,
I was like, oh, they couldn't have brought me a burger at a better time.
That was a bizarre. Yeah, we tried to make it each episode better and better, and on a zero budget, it was the amount of work me and my mate Nick put into it was just ridiculous. It was an interesting thing being able to just, I think that was one of the first times that you could grab a camcorder, make something, and get it on TV, and that was revolutionary at the time. Because I'd seen like obviously I saw Jackass when I was at college. That was a MTV show which looked like it was shot on a camcorder. I mean, it wasn't, but it had that vibe, just people mucking around. So I was like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it.
You've done well. Like, you did well to get noticed.
Yeah. And I think I learned a lot about promotion, about production, about realistically how much effort does it take to shoot like some sort of drama or comedy or something like that. So all those skills really helped. That's what got me all my jobs at MTV, really, anyway, is that, I enabled producers to be able to say, yes, we will make this show because we know Chris can make it, and I don't have to go to my boss for some huge budget. I would make shows for MTV that were, a few £1,000 that usually would be 50 grand, and they'd have to go get approval for it. And we could put it through as like petty cash or whatever. So say they wanted like, I don't know, I'm just, NSYNC top 10 hits or whatever, and you've got, I don't know, one of the, not Justin Timberlake, one of the other dudes who no one knows, coming into MTV for an hour. They knew they could give me a camcorder, hang out with this dude for an hour, and he would present top 10 NSYNC hits or whatever. Joey Fatoni, or whatever his name was. You know what I mean? And I could make stuff and it would look good, and I could do the graphics, and the whole thing would be coming on budget. And so that's really what my kind of career was about, was like making this stuff efficiently. And so that's how, you know, started off doing it DIY. I mean, just give you an example. When I first worked at MTV, there were 10 edit suites. And you've got an editor, you've got an assistant, you've got a producer, you've got a runner who goes and gets all their lunch. They demand fancy lunch every day. So every editor is like $100 worth of food straight off. That's without paying their wages. I would come into work with a laptop and put it upstairs on the desk and edit video. And I did that for like about 6 months, like making all these shows. And one day the head of post-production comes like storming upstairs and he's like, "The fuck are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm editing video, mate." And he's like, "How?" And I'm like, "On this laptop." And he's like, next day, he offers me a job in the post-production department. And all the producers are really pissed off because now they have to pay 10 grand a show again or whatever. Yeah, that's how I got to be a sort of full-time video editor at MTV, was because I was competing with the department, and like I think the like bosses there were like, "Get him in here." And that worked really well for me. And honestly, things did move over more digital, smaller laptops. You know, the crew size narrowed down.
But yeah, like technology has moved things on, and that was a while ago. But even now, like so my in-person podcasts, I do a 3-camera setup. So I've got a wide, which is me and the guest. I've got then like a long lens on either of us, and I shoot that in person with the mics into one laptop, and I go home and I'll sit with my 14-inch laptop on my lap and edit that thing, which is horrendous. The remote stuff, so much easier. But I can do that sitting on my sofa. You know, you couldn't have done that 20 years ago.
No, not at all. No, it was really difficult. Like, you know, just even, the amount of bodges and hacks I had to do to get things to work was, you know, ridiculous. And that was, you know, I think that sort of ingenuity or whatever, you know, like that impetus to just get things done is kind of what sort of has taken me through all my jobs I've ever done, really, is that nothing is ever straightforward, and everything needs a problem solved. Everything needs a fix. No matter how glamorous that the apparent production is, it still ends up with me scrambling under a desk trying to find where I'd put the USB cable, or trying to copy a hard drive because one hard drive's gone wonky and it needs, you know, trying to reformat some software halfway through a shoot or whatever, you know.
So with that in mind, there's this weird like thing in the film industry at the moment, and it feels like we've got this paradox where we've got like a massive community of people that make film using phones or DSLRs, and will make some amazing content, and we'll have to just problem solve and do hacks and all of this. So there's all these like really smart people that are just doing stuff on an absolute shoestring. And at the top end of that, Hollywood budgets are going up and up and up and up and up. And the capacity for Hollywood to make money seems to be like somewhat stagnant, whether it be people not going to the cinema as much anymore. You haven't got the second opening day when DVDs come out. They're relying on streaming services that don't have like a finite amount of money when someone goes to the shop and buys it. So like, how have we got all of these really smart people making stuff for no budget, and Hollywood budgets are shooting up when the capacity to make money's not there? Like, is it gonna implode at any time soon? We're gonna get some like decent indie films again?
What you've just described seems to be actually happening in every single industry, not just Hollywood. Like all commerce, the entire like capitalist system.
We're there.
Is right. So you got like rich people and poor people, and you got the economy, and the economy's going up, and the figures say the economy's going up and up and up, and the economy's like doing this, my pet peeve is podcasts that just quote other podcasts. So I don't want to get too much into this. But everyone should go watch Gary's Economics on YouTube. I don't know who that is.
Like I am all, he's the best seller at the moment. Like his book has just gone ridiculous.
Because he just had a book out this week. So I don't need to explain it. But what's happening is all these people are hoarding their money.
Yeah.
And on paper, the budgets are huge. And it's because all these producers are getting paid, who are already rich, are getting paid a fucking ton of money. And the people who are doing the work are getting paid shit. The films are getting worse. And the wages are getting worse. Because the audience is, and I would count myself in this group, working class / poor people.
Yeah.
And so you've got these very rich people coming down from on high to give you your entertainment so you don't smash the capitalist system to pieces. That's the way I look at it. Not advocating for anyone to do anything silly, but I just feel like, the please, sir, can we have some more attitude is not going to solve this problem. But that maybe went a little bit off the deep end.
Yeah, it's something that I'm thinking a lot about at the moment. So my day job, you've obviously been to my place of work. We used to be able to run this place on £8,000 a month. That was what we needed to pay everyone's wages, pay all the bills, £8,000 a month. Now we need £20,000 a month. And it's only the customers that have got to pay more. Like that's a huge, and that's only in 5 years. And it is like going up and up and up and up. Oh, hold that thought.
They've turned your power off, Brad. They heard you talking.
And they went, turn my power off.
Pull him.
There we go. That's better. So, that's nice. Really bright. I like that. And it's interesting what's happening in the world because the cost of everything's going up. So people just don't have as much money. And it does have an impact on things like cinema, Hollywood. People aren't going to go to the cinema as much. People aren't going to do things like come here and jump around as much.
Specifically, the way it affects me and the interactions I'm having with around this issue is that it's hilarious. So I'm just going to be completely transparent with you about money and things like that, because I think, obviously you've just offered some info and I'm quite happy to talk about this. I'd stand up in front of a crowd of 10,000 people and tell them. So if I told you I'd earned $1 million from making videos, you'd probably be like, wow. If I told a little kid that, they'd be like, wow, that's amazing, $1 million. I'd be like, yeah, all you've got to do is earn an average wage of 50 grand a year and do it for 20 years. Yeah. That's the right. That is on average what I've done. I've done a basic day job, a corporate day job, or a sort of MTV day job, and I'm doing this in dollar amounts at the moment, but would earn me $35,000, $40,000 a year. And then I do freelance work at night, so I barely ever sleep. I might earn another 10 grand a year doing little favors or whatever for people. People chuck me $500 every now and then to do another job, And so that's probably averaged out about that amount of money. And in that time, I have saved probably about 5 grand, right? And the rest of it has been spent on, diapers, food for the kids, rent, obviously, ridiculous amount of immigration paperwork fees.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And so that's where I'm at financially. I'm very lucky that I went to college, university in a time where the student loan was like, you come out with a 10 grand student loan and not a 100 grand student loan. And so I paid that off. I don't have any huge debts. I've got a Ford Focus car, which I've paid off, which was only about 6 grand. And so I'm very lucky in that if I suddenly have a huge bill come in, I could do extra freelance work and not sleep, but I could probably, if as surprises in life appear, I'm able to handle them. And the tricky thing, the thing that I find hilarious is I get, it's usually kids or teenagers or people in their 20s who'll be like, you're quite good at videos, Chris. You should get a YouTube channel. And I'll be like, I mean, I've got a few YouTube channels, different projects I've made, but why'd you say that? And they're like, no, you made loads of money on YouTube. Mr. Beast have you not heard of Mr. Beast? You make loads of money, Chris. I'm like, and I sort of have to sit them down and be like, look, if I put the same amount of effort into YouTube as I do normal videos, I wouldn't make $50,000 a year, I'd make $20,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then I'd be one of those YouTubers that's like, hi guys, we need to talk. I'm having a bit of a breakdown right now because, you know, I'm famous and the pressure of making content for you guys is really big, and I can't hack it, and I haven't eaten in 3 months, and I'm scavenging food out of the garbage. You know, and everyone's like, yeah, YouTube. And YouTube is up there with freaking Uber and, you know, or Deliveroo or whatever. And it's just destroying people's ability to make money because they think, oh, there's no barrier. I've just got an app. And then they wonder at the end of the month, why have they only earned $1,000 and they can't afford to eat? Obviously, I'm not, you know, if all you can earn is 20 grand or 15 grand a year or 10 grand a year, and that's what you're doing, and you're proud of your work and you enjoy going to work and you live you know, it's a difficult life. Like, I'm not criticizing you. That's great if you're happy. But if you find yourself thinking, why can't I put the heating on? Or, you know, why can't I eat? That's not your fault. That's the system screwing you over, and you can't put up with it. And so that's where, you know, I get slightly prickly when people are like, oh, you should get a YouTube channel and earn some money. I'm like, mate, they're paying pennies on the dollar for actual hard work. Like, why are you propping up a multinational company? You know, and I use YouTube, I use Google. I'm happy to give them a few dollars and pay for a bit more space on Google Drive, or watch, you know, I'm happy to watch ads in between YouTube videos, and I'm happy to put out things on YouTube that I do for fun. And, you know, same way I used to copy up VHS tapes and send them out to my mates, like, that's fine. But I'm not going to run a business like that, because you're instantly being sort of screwed, you know. And yeah. Sorry for the rant, but yeah.
No, I like it. This is sense. But you're right, that gig economy thing, whether it be like Deliveroo don't make any food, Airbnb don't have any hotels, Uber don't have any taxis. They work enough other people. Those people would have been, you know, self-employed, or the takeaway would have sent their own guys out. And now there's an app that seems like unnecessary. It's just in one place, but they're making money off stuff that people could do on their own. Yeah,
it's just they're just leaching.
Just making everything get more expensive, and they can change the rules at any time. Yeah.
And then you get fired, you've got no job security, you know, you can't join a union.
Yeah, we're living in like the worst timeline. We need to do something about it.
Yeah. One of the funniest things that's ever happened to me is Uber started in Boise. So Boise, Idaho is a mid-sized city, about the same size as Chelmsford, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by desert and mountains. So the next big city is a 5-hour drive away, at least. And Uber started up in Boise. And Boise, the city, would not give them a license to do cabs for about 8 months. And Uber were taking over the whole of the United States, you know, and this is about 8-9 years ago. And so what they did is Uber said, we'll give free rides to anyone in Boise while we're waiting for our license. So I was like, wait, what? You're being serious? This is quite a big state, right? So I get an hour cab twice a week and run up a like $500 Uber bill that they paid with venture capitalist money. The driver got paid and I got a free ride. And Uber were absorbing hundreds of dollars of my rides. And what happened was, this lasted about 6 months. And a local Uber driver had a little epiphany one day, and he got 2 phones. And so he signed up as a driver on one phone, and he signed up as a passenger on another. And rode his own car around Boise for 10 hours a day, right? Getting paid to give himself a lift. And eventually, this did end up in, I think he got like federal charges of like wire fraud and, you know, whatever. Like, they obviously threw the book at him when they found out. But he went months and months on a full-time wage. He was making out 5-6 grand a month. Just driving his car around in circles. It's brilliant.
Well, maybe you're like the catalyst for this, because another like really famous person that made a lot of money online was actually from Essex. The guy who came up with OnlyFans is an Essex boy,
Yes.
which makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
Horrifying fact is that for women in America, the highest paid part-time job right now in America is OnlyFans.
Wow.
Yeah, that's statistically the highest paid part-time job. And it's not even that much, it's like, a couple grand or whatever. Obviously, that's a lot of money if you need it. And of course, that's a wage. But what I mean is, like, it's not like, you hear these things of like ladies making $1 million or whatever, right? But the average, the average OnlyFans model is making hundreds or thousands of dollars a month with this. And it's like, unbelievable business model. Obviously, there's not even an app, because like the app stores wouldn't have an OnlyFans app. So they've made this like it's a website that you have to go to on your phone. So like even to get people to go to that is genius. Basically, I was joking around about this with one of my buddies the other day. Like what they've monetized is if there's a hot girl that works in the chip shop, right? They've monetized dads being able to like send her $5 to see her boobs. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the sort of social. They've made that socially acceptable, which I am quite a liberal person, but again that worries me. Like I don't think the sex industry has ever been particularly good on workers' rights, but I can guarantee you OnlyFans are just completely washing their hands with it and being like, it's got nothing to do with us. I do wonder if OnlyFans is going to get, I don't know if the American government get around to it, but they used to have a thing called Craigslist here, which is a local sales website. And obviously a lot of the ads on it were for like prostitution and all this kind of stuff. And they got like federal sex trafficking charges. And so they removed all the all the local personal ads because they were all prostitute ads. And obviously OnlyFans is sort of in that ballpark, some of it. So I'd be surprised if at some point they don't send one of the bosses of OnlyFans to federal prison for like 30 years or whatever.
Like politically, we're probably in a similar area. And I think like a woman's body's her own business. If she wants to make some money on it, then fair play to her. But there's a girl local to here that did OnlyFans in 2020 when it really took off. And she did it for a couple of months thinking, a couple of spicy videos, make a little bit of money. But she said the people that were signing up were like her ex-boss and people she went to school with. And suddenly, because she knew who these people were, it was a bit creepy and weird rather than it being random anonymous people on the internet. And I guess you're right.
There are no random anonymous. You're not going to add a random girl that you don't know versus, hey, I've got a crush on this local girl. She's got an OnlyFans and now that's going to make me pay $5 or whatever. Yeah. Like that's the model. And that is... It's the same thing with like social media. It's the same thing as this. Like, are we going to reach tens of thousands of random people on the internet? No. Are we going to reach people that are into parkour or into making videos and know me or you? Probably we will do. And it's the same market. It's on the internet. So yes, it is worldwide, but you're still going to probably reach the narrower channels of people first, before you get over that hump and reach a broader audience. And I think
the stats on these videos really drive me. I'd love to know who's watching them, because they say I've got at this point 21 followers on YouTube, but most of my daily shorts are getting like 500 to 800 views. I'm like, who is that? I don't know. Like 500 to 800 people that are interested.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Well, hello.
Hello, you random people. But you've still got a level of local fame. So I went to Mortgage Broker last year, and she was like, Chris Phillips? I was like, yes, I do. How do you know Chris Phillips? And she was, I think she went to
sweet. Let me know. I'll probably need to try and get a mortgage at some point.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing that I mean, you've got kids and I've got a little girl, and I really worry about what the world's going to be doing in another 20 or 30 years, because we've got to do something. Surely we've got a responsibility to make the world a bit better, but how? Where do we even start?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting, it's an interesting time to, try and figure out you know, I've been sort of educating my kids or training them up as if like the world's going to end up like Mad Max or something. We used to be like, oh, you can go to college and be a doctor or whatever, or a lawyer or something. And now I'm just like, okay, kids, this is how you barricade a door. This is how you put a fire out yourself. If you get cuts or, you know, if you injure yourself, this is how you like, you know, stop the bleeding.
Well, actually, it's funny, like, as we've moved on to like talking about parenthood and things, and I've spoken to other creators who have got kids and people that are closer to our age, because that's who has children these days. How do you balance like doing the fun stuff? Because you do some really fun stuff. Like I know we've spoken about Emo Rangers and the one that I watch a little bit more now, Doctor Who Velocity, which is great. And how do you involve the kids in that, or how do you balance like family life and creating stuff in your part-time and your spare time?
Yeah, interesting. One of the things I've tried really hard to do throughout my life and is to eliminate like the sort of things that the constant things that I see bugging middle-aged people. I've tried to sort of like eliminate those, and that would be just most of it's like, you know, I see a lot of, and I think it's a bigger problem in America, but one is like people have huge personal debt, like mental debt. Like they've got 2 BMWs on their front drive and a huge house, and they don't own 10% of it. Like it's mental. And so I think that creates like, you know, and then if you add getting unhealthy to that, you know, if you can't get off the couch and your body's hurting and you're 40 and, you know, you don't have time, you know, and you want to watch Netflix and like you drink a lot. I just see people like sort of drowning in this sort of like, you know,
well,
stuff.
That lack of health in America is expensive, right? Because you don't have the same sort of healthcare that a lot of places have. So
yeah,
that becomes expensive to be unhealthy.
Based on what. So one of the things I try and do is inspire myself to do fun stuff, and that's with like consuming things that are like fun. And some of it's like a little bit like nostalgic, or I'm a bit homesick. I watch a lot of like British sort of YouTubers that fit into that sort of like fun. It's a bit like Jackass. You know, I always used to love Jackass, and that was guys jumping off of buildings. Obviously, then I did Emo Rangers with you lot. And then now I watch like, you know, the Storra lads doing parkour. Yeah. Sam Pilgrim, a mountain biker from Colchester's got a really big YouTube channel. Watch him a lot. And just people that sort of like don't follow the rules and just have a lot of fun and stay healthy. And that's inspired me. You know, I've done trampolining for the past couple of years with my kid. Ollie and Magdalene comes as well. And, you know, that's kept me healthy. And I actually just, probably inspired by seeing the parkour stuff that we did with Ollie in November, with you guys at Kinetics. You know, I just joined a gym a couple of months ago. So I've been doing that every day, which is new for me because I never really went to the gym at all. And it's been a complete change for me. Like my energy level's just gone way up. And so the reason I'm talking about all these things is because you know, obviously you can see I've got a BMX here. That's how I get around town. You know, people look at adults in America look at me like, is that your kid's bike? And I'm like, no. And they're like, I know it's just a 20-inch BMX, so you're going to get that reaction anyway. But they're like, well, do you not have a car? And I'm like, my partner's got a car. I mean, it's our car, but like, I don't use it that much. I just cycle. And if the kids have got to go around town, I cycle with them. And they're like, oh. And it's like, why do that? I'll tell you why, because a visit to the doctors is bloody 10 grand. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Oh, you know, I can't go for a checkup because that's $1 grand. I have, you know, I've got to be healthy and eat healthy. And, you know, food here, cheap food is so gross. Like if you start thinking about it, it makes you angry, basically. So anyway, personal debt and health are the things that I've really tried to attack and like make sure aren't issues, so that, yeah, I've got energy, I've got time to do funny little things. You know, a lot of it is when the kids have gone to bed. Sometimes I'll try and involve them, like, all right, you're playing an alien or whatever. So you can kind of like roll in your hobby project to a sort of mucking around with the kids so they enjoy it. I don't put pressure on them. I'm not like a YouTube parent, you know, like you see these weird parents trying to get their kids to do vlogs and stuff. Don't do any of that. The kids are in a few of our Doctor Who episodes, but it's pretty incidental. I'm not like trying to make a celebrity out of them. And again, the things I have done, like so obviously I've been doing a Doctor Who fan film with my partner, Crystal. She's a comedian. We've been doing that for like maybe 5 or 6 years now. And that's just literally a hobby project on the side. Do it when we can do it. Don't put pressure on yourself. And then it looks like I'm spending a lot of time on it. And really it's a tiny sliver of my sort of daily grind of editing. But just trying to be, keeping the energy up really. I mean, that's one of the things that I learned from MTV or from doing entertainment was you'd meet these like famous presenters and you think they're like 25 or something and then they're like 50 and you're like, wait, what? Like, and part of it is their outlook. Part of it's obviously being healthy. Now, a lot of these people are rich, so they can go to the gym and have a personal chef or whatever. So, and then a lot of makeup, right? And so because I worked at MTV doing teenage entertainment for so many years, I think I sort of have a bit more of that mindset. But you've got a kind of youthful teenage mindset and diligence in working, paying your bills, being healthy, getting to bed on time. It's quite a good balance. I have met a lot of people that are a teenage mindset and are like, you know, doing a lot of drugs, partying, you know, all these kind of things, buying themselves fancy sports cars, and then it catches up with them pretty badly. So
it'll catch up. Absolutely catch up.
Yeah, I'm sure you know a few people like that in entertainment that you have to sort of, you know, things come back to bite you in the ass pretty hard, I'd say. So you've got to be, you know, and part of the other thing about the health thing is like, you know, my dad is okay at the moment, but he suffered from bowel cancer a couple of years ago, and was lucky to have an operation and some pills or whatever, and has been okay. But what that taught me is that if you're really fit and healthy and get some sort of horrible terminal illness, you could recover from it. You could have 5 or 10 years of pretty good times before it gets you. And I've seen that with some of my other friends' parents and stuff as well. And if you're really unhealthy, you know, you can have a pretty miserable time. Like if you can't get out of bed because you've got some horrible illness, if you're already at the point where you have trouble getting out of bed anyway, it's gonna really
do you,
knock you out. Yeah. So that's something I've tried to keep in mind, that I've seen is like, you know, it's better to be healthy than not, because even if you do get something horrible happen to you, you know, and I've broke my hip before. I broke my hip before falling off a bike. It was wet floor. That was 10 years ago. And I realized at the time, like, just using crutches, like if you don't have strong arms, you can't just suddenly walk around with crutches and be fine. Like that's like walking around on your arms. You're not used to it. It's really physically difficult. Yeah. So if you see people who are really out of shape and they're trying to use crutches, like they barely get to the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh, I've broken both ankles in the past, and like the blisters you get on your palms and how hard it is just to move around. It's really difficult. Yeah. And again, I was a pretty fit person. So again, like I'm absolutely fascinated, and these conversations are just always brilliant because you just go off and really get a feel of what someone's all about. I am interested in what took you from Braintree, which for anyone who's not familiar with it is not a very big town. It's not. I mean, I'm in Whittam at the moment, which is next to Braintree. Yeah. I think what's the biggest claim to fame for Essex? We had one of the X-Men from Malden.
It's the one Olivia Munn played in the movie. She's like got a purple outfit. She's like the sister of Captain Britain.
Psylocke. Anyway. Psylocke is from Malden, which is just around the corner.
Gotcha.
She didn't speak with a Malden accent. I was very, very disappointed. Very disappointed. But what brings you from like Braintree to the United States
Yeah.
and not LA? You know, LA draws filmmakers. How comes you're a little bit further east than that?
Basically, to cut a long story short, is that I went on about 15 years ago. I went on vacation to America to visit a British friend who lived out here, and I ended up having a bit of a holiday romance, and that turned into dating, transatlantic dating, for about 6 months, 8 months, and then we got married because one, we felt like we wanted to get married, and two, you can't carry on dating because your visas run out because you can't keep traveling back and forth that much, and so we were together about 2 years, and then that surprise, if you sort of get married to someone you've only been dating a few years from the other side of the world, I'd say the odds are not in your favor. But yeah, so we broke up, but we were living in Boise anyway, and so I stayed here, and I was planning on coming back to England. Yeah, I met my current partner, Crystal, about a decade ago, and yeah, we sort of stayed in touch. We were both getting divorced at the time. She had a little girl about 6, and so it's funny. It's a bit of it's going to sound like a silly rom-com, but I'm riding home from work, which is where I am right now in my local office for this marketing company I work for. I'm riding home, and there's an old man who's on the pavement, and he's like passed out. He looks like a sort of a drunk guy, or a homeless person, and there's a cop standing next to him. The cop just walks off, and so I pull up on my BMX, and I'm like, "Are you right, mate?" And he's like, So I get him up. I'm like, "You okay?" And I realise this guy's like 70 years old, so he's not like, he had a beard and was a bit dishevelled, but he's not like a homeless 35-year-old who's had too much to drink. He's 70 years old, and he's in need of some help. So as I'm picking him up, this young lady walks over, and that's Crystal, and she's like, "Oh, you all right?" I'm like, yeah, I just found this old guy. And so we help him up, and so she's like, "I've got a car nearby, I'll go get my car and we'll get him in." So I'm putting this old sort of guy who's passed out in, he starts to wake up and say he needs a ride home and all this stuff. So we get him in the car, and then at that point I'm like, I've just put a homeless guy or someone who's looks a bit sketchy in a car with this young woman on her own. She's on her own. So I was like, "Do you want me to is this more or less dangerous with me getting in as well?" Do you know what I mean? I don't know what to do right now, and because you can't call an ambulance. It's going to give this guy a fucking $1,500 bill. Yeah, mental. So, and they probably wouldn't even come out because he would, Anyway, so we managed to get him back to his house, and then we sort of stayed in touch and went to check on him a few times. He was like a little bit senile, a little bit of a hoarder. His house was a crazy mess, but he was okay, and he did have some family, and we managed to get in contact with him and just let him know that this guy sort of needs some help and all that. So yeah, so we stayed in touch, and a year or two later we were sort of together and living together, and had a 6-year-old living at ours as well, and yeah, it's been good. And then a year later we got a little baby along the way, and that's Oliver, my son, and he's 8 now. So yeah, it all worked out okay. The visa process is quite difficult, and getting divorced doesn't help. And, as you can imagine, a lot of these kind of like immigration things, they're trying to check, like, are you, trying to scam your way into America or whatever. So there's a lot of process to go through, and it's tens of thousands of dollars of fees once you pay a lawyer to help you out with it. And,
so had you got your residency or your citizenship when you were married, and can they revoke that when you get divorced then? I don't know how it works.
So the way it works is you get a green card. A green card is a visa to live and work in America. And when you get married, if you get married to an American citizen, in general, you can get a green card. And so that's what I did. And then after 2 years, you have to renew your green card. So they check that the conditions that you said you were entering the United States on are still valid. Mm-hmm. And that's where it gets like a little bit tricky, because if you got divorced, they're going to have extra questions for you, basically. So, luckily I did, I had permission to work, and I was working here full time, paying my taxes. And, so there were some things that go for you. Obviously there's things that could go against you. Funnily enough, having kids is like, it's not like you're not allowed to have kids. You can have kids because kids happen, right? But if the kids are going to be going on welfare or something, they'd be like really pissed off about that, you know. So you got to sort of show that you're, you know, paying your bills and paying your taxes, which I was, and so that everything was sort of worked out okay. So yeah, so it's only sort of within the last year or two that I've been a full citizen. So that was for a permanent green card, and then after 5 years you can apply for citizenship. And when you apply for citizenship, they reopen all your case. And if you get citizenship, you can stay forever. And if you don't get citizenship, they kick you out. So it's like an all or nothing gamble. And then because I got my citizenship, it means I can travel outside the United States. And when I come back in, I don't have to worry about anything. And so that's why when I left for America, I didn't come back really up until, you know, the last couple of years when I had my citizenship, because I had Ollie, had a son here. He's an American citizen. So like there was a possibility that I might not be able to come back into the United States, and he lives here.
Yeah.
Obviously that would be an absolute nightmare. And also I am, so, you know, childcare in Boise is nearly $1,500 a month, which means that my partner, Crystal, she's a comedian, which is good to have a sense of humor. That's why she is dating me, I guess. You know, she's basically a stay-at-home mum during the day, and then at night she does comedy work, and she runs like a production business and that kind of stuff. And that meant that I was the main sort of wage earner for the family. So the worry of me being kicked out was like quite real, because, and then obviously I've got a stepdaughter as well, who I don't have any like legal connection with. So it's quite a lot of worry during that process, but luckily it all went fine, and we've year and a half into being a citizen, it's all going good. So
I mean, US border control can be I mean, the TSA, particularly at airports, but also the border force are aggressive at times. So I've worked in the States a few times. I've got a US social security number, a social security card. I've worked for US companies, and that's really helpful to have some paperwork. But my visas were always temporary visas, so they were like 6 months at a time. But you can't leave the United States and come back in the last month of your visa, because they class that as, well, you're finished now, you've gone. Like, you're either working or you're not. And we were upstate New York, and some of the guys didn't know this. So they're in the last month of their visa. They finished work. They're doing a bit of traveling. They've gone over to Toronto and haven't been able to come back in. I'm like, all my stuff's at the hotel. Like, what are you going to do? A real mess. And you have to get the consulate involved. And and now you're stuck in Canada with none of your stuff and no airline tickets. Like once you leave, they don't want you coming back in. Yeah,
it's funny. Like, you've got to be really careful about stuff like that. I often see people like move into the US or whatever, and I'm like, you really need to get a lawyer first before you even get here. Like, it's a lot of, you got to be really careful, because you can mess things up. And I am aware of that as well. So it's very, very difficult. Do you want to talk about Tim Westwood?
I really do. Because we kind of jumped, and I know that you've done a lot of MTV, and Pimp My Ride was massive. Was that the garage they do that? It was around here, wasn't it? Was that North Essex?
Colchester, yeah. It's in Colchester. Hythe, it's in that industrial estate in Hythe in Colchester, yeah.
So I live a mile away from there now. That's like close to where I live. Talk to me about Tim Westwood, Pimp My Ride, which they couldn't do anymore. Like, cars are not like that anymore, I hope.
No. So I worked, I started working for MTV on Pimp My Ride. That was my first job for MTV. And it was because I went to college, and a guy who was already working at MTV was like, hey, Chris lives in Essex. He could be the guy that goes to the garage every day with a camcorder and films the cars being done up. And this is about the same time that I was doing emo ranges. I want to get into some challenging territory here.
Okay.
There's a lot to talk about. I'm going to talk about growing up in Essex, and you can chip in where you feel comfortable. When I was a kid at high school, they tell you, you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the guy a lot of guys want to be is it's home time at your high school. I went to Notley High School in Essex. It's home time, and you're in year 11, and the 16-year-old girls walk out of school, and their 24 or 25-year-old boyfriend picks them up in a really cool Fiesta with spoilers with the music up loud, right? Picks them up and drives off. And as a 16-year-old boy, you think, oh, wow, what a hero. Do you know what I mean?
He's cool.
What a cool person. Oh, and he's got a job as well. And sort of the next day, your classmates, all these girls go, oh, my boyfriend Billy's got a job. He's the shift manager at Burger King or whatever. And he's got a really cool car. And he took me to Zeus last night or whatever, you know. And it's this sort of like nightclub culture. And in the 90s, you know, when I was growing up, late 90s, you know, you've got these nightclubs and they do like girls get in for free or girls get free drinks. Now that seems like a recipe for disaster, doesn't it? If you add all those things together, you buy FHM magazine, it's all like girls in bikinis and car shows. Max Power magazine had cars and girls on the front. And that's the culture. That's what we were sort of ingrained to do. I don't know if you remember the term going out on the pull, right? You go out on the pull. That's what you do. You go out to a nightclub, you get drunk, you wander around the dance floor. You might see some other ladies there that hopefully are within a few years of your own age. They don't check any IDs. And what you do, the tradition is to get on the dance floor, do a bit of dancing. Maybe you grind up behind someone, you know. Maybe if they like you, you turn around, you get a snog out of it. And if you don't like that, they'll tell you to fuck off and slap you or whatever, right? And that was the culture that I grew up in, and it's probably maybe something similar to what you grew up in.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Williamson, I know you don't like podcasters talking about other podcasts, but Chris Williamson talks quite a lot about like the old Carnage nights, and where you'd have like challenges, you try and like, I'm going to use someone else's terminology, not my own, but pull a pig or grab a granny or any of these things that were like for a laugh, you know, and you can't just, that's not something that happens these days.
No. And it is, as much as there was funny stuff going on, there's a lot of people that had awful experiences in that way of living. Do you know what I mean? Like really, and even the guys, like, so I actually stopped drinking pretty much 99% when I was about 25. And it was because of this atmosphere, and it started to tail off after that culturally anyway, but I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm not enjoying it. You know, when I come back from college, you know, I'm 21 in Chelmsford, you know, I'm not the 16-year-old anymore. Now I'm the guy in my early 20s. I've got a job, I've got a little bit of like local fame, which is complete nonsense. But if you have a well-known job, or you're well-known for making some funny video or something, it gives you a little bit of like status or whatever. Obviously it's complete nonsense. It's complete silliness, but it feels like that at the time. You know, much the same as you might have been, oh, you're the parkour expert and you've got a bunch of 16-year-old lads who are looking to you because you're 19, 20, 21 being the parkour expert. I had the same sort of thing with like the media stuff. And of course, along with that, you get the 17, 18-year-old girls that are mates with them who are now looking up at you going, oh, who's that dude? Who's your older mate with a wallet with 50 quid in it? Yeah, exactly. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the culture of that, you know, you can see how this could get a little bit out of hand. You know, if you're an arsehole millionaire and you don't have a bit of local fame, you have national fame,
proper fame,
and you're not 25 with an 18-year-old girlfriend or 22 with a 16-year-old girlfriend. You are 40, right? With you know, going to nightclubs with 17-year-olds. It's not a great look, is it? To be honest. And that's, you know, when I worked at MTV, I would frequently meet, you know, people that fit into that category where you're sort of looking at them like, and as a young man, you think, oh, they've got it all. They're really famous. They've got money. They've got crowds of girls, crowds of them. You know, they're a famous pop star. They're in a boy band. They're a presenter. You know, well, if you just set up those things as a scenario, what do you think is going to happen? You know, you're going to get a lot of people, a lot of young ladies subjected to awful stuff because, you know, not every guy is going to be nice and go around and meet your dad and have dinner or whatever. A lot of guys are going to be just like, oh yeah, great. You know, let's make out with a bunch of ladies and then just clear off or whatever, you know. and that's putting it lightly, because obviously,
Oh yeah.
you know, some of the things that, you know, I worked with Westwood a bunch of times, and I never saw him commit a crime, so I will say that right now. But at the time, I was 22, and I was dating a 17-year-old girl from Colchester High, or whatever it's called. She was in the sixth form, and I'm still friends with her to this day. And I've spoken to her about this quite recently. She's very happily, she's got kids, partner, been married a few years, lovely girl. I had to give her a little message a few months back, being like, have you seen the news? Like, have you seen all this stuff that's coming out about Westwood? And she was like, oh yeah. And I said, I remember having Westwood talk to you on the phone. So I was on a shoot for Pimp My Ride, and my girlfriend at the time, she actually loved Tim Westwood, had some of his CDs or whatever, and obviously knew that he was famous, Radio 1 or whatever, and was like, oh, you know, I was like, oh, I'll get you to call him. So I remember him calling her, and the lads were like laughing because she went to the sixth form or whatever. So you can imagine the jokes. And so he's chatting her up on the phone. And I remember at the time him sort of saying like, oh, don't you want to dump this dude, you should come out with me. And he was sort of joking, but looking back on it, now obviously I'm the age he was then now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I would never, why would you make a joke like that? That's really weird, isn't it? It's really weird. It's very unusual to make a joke like that. Like, that's really gross. And girls that age now, 17, 18-year-old, seem like little children. Do you know what I mean? They're like preoccupied with TikTok or whatever. Like, they're not adults. I mean, they might legally be adults when they're 18, but you don't, as an old man, you sort of treat these people as like precious children that you want to look after. And he's sort of, his demeanor is that these are sexy girls that should come out to the nightclub with us or whatever. Do you know what I mean? That's at the forefront of what he's talking about. And so a few months ago, I'm messaging this professional woman that used to be a young lady I was dating, going, hey, I remember introducing you to Westwood, and I just wanted to check in. Did you ever meet him? Was there any other experience that you had with him? And luckily, she was like, no, it was, because, I couldn't remember. And she's like, no, that was it. He chatted to me, he was a sleazy, weird dude, and that was that. And I was like, okay, so that's, that was reassuring. But I get a call on the phone, and they're like, hi, I'm a BBC journalist, and I'm doing a follow-up documentary about Westwood. What do you have anything you want to say? And I did talk about what I've just talked about with you, the culture, a working class men's garage in Colchester is not the most feminist place on earth, as you can well imagine. And there was, I did see a lot of things, people dating people that they probably shouldn't have been dating. We need to educate young men that just because something isn't illegal, it does not make that the baseline for like what you should be aiming for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's a politician's excuse, isn't it? We haven't broken any rules. Well, the rules are maybe wrong then, because it was definitely a bad thing.
Yeah. And it made me sort of like, as you start to sort of see these Me Too things happening, I think there's a couple of things. Like, people ask me, now Tim Westwood has not been convicted of any criminal offences yet. And I'm not accusing him of any criminal offences because I never saw him commit a criminal offence. But he is accused of very terrible criminal offences. And if he did these things, it's not enough to say, well, it was the time, it was like the culture. Like, there is a very definite line between being a rapist of children and being a bit of a wide boy who's got a few young girlfriends. Do you know what I mean? There is a definite line there. And you can see that the accusations that have made put it way over the line.
Yeah.
It's really hard because I love making videos. I loved making emo ranges. I loved getting all these teenagers involved, go over the park, get Luke Markey to jump off a roof, film it. It's full of cheeky jokes. It's full of stuff that would probably get you cancelled these days. You know, it is very edgy entertainment. And to see that, like, you know, to realise that there was a lot of stuff around me that was not a joke and it was abusive. And, like, you sort of worry that, like, I didn't warn anyone that, like, you know, this is, you know, be careful. Nowadays, I'd be much more, you know, if I heard that there's a, you know, 18-year-old intern going to MTV, I'd want to sit him down and tell him, like, all right, here's all the brilliant stuff about MTV. Here's all the really kind people that were kind to me. Here's all the great stuff that happened. Lovely people that I've worked with and I still work with to this day. But here, this is the entertainment industry, and here's things that have happened, and here's things to watch out for, because it is, you know, it's real. People do get abused, and it's not just entertainment. I know people that worked in fast food restaurants where the shift managers being a problem, you know, and I'm sure we've all, you know, it's rife throughout society, that kind of opportunity.
Abuse of power.
Totally, and it's. I guess we're getting to that age now where you sort of, like, the sins of your youth sort of just play on your mind, even if they weren't that bad, even if they weren't these kind of terrible things. They were just like, oh, yeah, one time I was drunk and I did smack a girl's bum in the pub or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, those things that I thought were funny back when I was 18 and be like, oh, I won't do that again, are now like, oh, shit, that was, you know, that's not good behavior. And you know, now I obviously try and bring up my kids to know that, be careful, think about what you're doing. And
I've got a daughter, so, like,
yeah,
I'm like, what's that going to look like? And when boys are talking to her in another 15 or so years, I'm going to really have to bite my tongue.
Yeah, no, it's difficult, and it's you know, so my 15-year-old stepdaughter, she's a lesbian, and so with Crystal, her mum being a comedian, she does a whole joke about the happiest day of my life was when I realized my daughter came out, and I was like, oh my God, thank God. because Crystal's dealt with guys in her past that were really, really tough on her, really tough. And, you know, and it does make you realize, like, damn, you know, you've got to, you know, it's important to sort of challenge some of the sort of society, the things that happen in society, and you think, oh yeah, it's just a bit of fun or whatever, and to challenge those things and be like, you know, it's all about real connections and making sure people feel appreciated and respected, and can just make such a difference on people's lives.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The culture was very, very different back then. And I think that as men in their 40s, you'd never dream of behaving the way you did when you were 18. And I think people are more aware of things, and whether it be because everyone's got a smartphone and anything's going to be on social media, we probably did more stupid things. I'm not talking about illegal or bad things, but we probably did more stupid things because the only person that'd ever remember it is the mate that was with you. Whereas now you do something stupid, everyone sees it. And you hear horror stories about, you know, 14-year-old boy that would do something really daft on a webcam to a girl, or on a FaceTime call. The next day, the entire school's seen it, and that video is not going anywhere. That's there forever, you know. And then there's other crimes that have been committed off the back of that. Whereas at least when we did stupid things, it was done the next day.
Yeah, that's very true. You know, I try and sort of like make sure our kids know anything within that realm that may be a sort of like a, you know, whether it's a relationship thing or as they get older, and more of a sexual thing. Like, there's no guilt in, you know, as long as you've behaved kindly to other people and consensually, there's no guilt in anything that you may or may not have got yourself involved in. And the minute anyone would ever try and blackmail you or whatever, you know, they're in the wrong. You know, to put it bluntly, is don't send naked pictures of yourself to anyone
ever.
But if it so happened that happened, it doesn't matter. Like you need to be sure of yourself that you're not the one being you're the innocent person here, and they're the people that are sort of trying to take advantage of you in this way. They're the criminal, and you've got no shame from us. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I heard about there was one lad in America I saw committed suicide because he sent like a naked picture of himself to someone or something. And they'd threatened to show the parents. And I've told our teenager, like, mate, if anyone just ever sort of even implies that they're going to try something like that, you just tell them to F off and block them. Like, we don't give a crap. Don't worry about it.
You're not going to be in trouble for that. They're going to be in trouble for having shared it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and who knows where the world goes, because we're all going to be turned into AI robot things anyway. So...
Yeah, this isn't the dystopia that I signed up for. I thought AI was going to be doing all the menial and manual stuff, and we could just do all the arty creative stuff. It's not the way.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the AI stuff from a creative point of view, because I know that there's a lot of people there's a lot of local artists that don't really make any money, are really mad that they think all their art's been stolen, and I sort of take that argument with a little bit of a pinch of salt, but I think real experiences trump any sort of like, AI, whatever. Anyone can, in 5 years' time, anyone's going to be able to make their own Marvel movie by typing in whatever, and they're not real. They're not real, are they? So it doesn't matter. Like, what's real is, when I watch Sam Pilgrim do a backflip on a mountain bike in a Colchester skate park, it's brilliant. It's real, isn't it? It's real. He's learned to do it. 99% of people would break their neck if they tried that, and he can do it. And it's inspiring. And it isn't, look at this beautiful shot that's all CG. Honestly, I feel like that stuff doesn't matter as much. It's just sort of like window dressing, and that's what AI is good at. It's good at like nice, smooth pictures with, a person's got 6 fingers or whatever, but it's not got that realness to it that makes people actually interested.
I really hope that real experiences and witnessing things firsthand and people doing things will have a resurgence, and we'll get away from people just staring at their phones, because it's not going to be real at all. AI chatbots, AI influencers, that's what's going to happen. It's just going to be another form of advertising. So people are going to put the phones down and start going outside a bit more. Hope.
Yeah, it's more spam, isn't it? It's the spam is like higher quality. That's the only thing that it's going to do. It's like white noise almost, which is weird, because that's how, AI image generators are basically noise, and then it's run through an algorithm that creates it iterates on the noise until it looks more like what it thinks an image should look like, and that's how it creates it. So it is basically like, millions of... I've already created more AI images than I've ever created actual images, like easily, because you can sit on Midjourney and just like muck around for hours just making stupid stuff, and it's not... I can't even remember any of it. I don't even remember things that I've created with AI. I haven't got a clue. I couldn't even tell you what they look like, But things I spent time filming and making myself, I know, because that's what had the impact. And
you'll remember the experience, like your experience with Tim Westwood. You wouldn't have had those experiences had you just typed into an image generator, make me an episode of Pimp My Ride.
No, of course not. That's exactly it. Is that the real life experiences are the thing that's really important, and I think I think the younger generation already know that. Like my teenager has, she's just gone through a stage where she was like using Instagram too much and too many chats. Like it's not the pictures, it's the instant messaging, and so she'd be messaging all her mates all night. 3 a.m, I can hear the phone going, and I'm like, put your phone away, go to bed, get you at school tomorrow. Just classic teenage stuff. Yeah. And she realised that actually there's no benefit to chatting to your mates at 3 a.m. You know, teenage girls just sort of create drama with each other at that time about, you know, so-and-so's dating so-and-so, or so-and-so said this to so-and-so or whatever. And I just have to tell her, like, you don't need to deal with this. You can just block everyone and just deal with it tomorrow. Like, don't get sucked into it. And she's doing that herself now, has realized, like, okay, I need to take a step back from it and deal with people in real life, like go out and, you know, have fun. I think it seems like the younger generation is slightly more switched on to practical sort of advice, or like self-helpy type of advice, where, like, you know, don't drink alcohol, exercise a bit more, you know, all that type of stuff. You know, mental health issues, I think they're more you know, switched onto, which I think is all really good. I think there's a flip side to it where, you know, every little kid now, every 14-year-old now has diagnosed themselves with 10 things that they think they've got. And, you know, so we have to do a lot of moderating with our teenager. Like, yeah, you know, Kelly says she's 2% autistic, but, you know, is that really a thing? Or, you know, I've been, you know, we've had quite a few times the last few months where, like, you know, one of our friends has been really unreasonable, and then they'll blame it on whatever medical condition happens to get you off the hook for whatever it is that they've done.
Yeah, that devalues people with actual, like, if you blame it on whatever, then people who do have a genuine condition, like, it's the boy who cried wolf, isn't it? And navigating that's quite tough.
Yeah, and it's you know, at the risk of the two old white men, you know, putting the world to right about all these things, you know, having a gay teenager has been really interesting. I'm going to come up with some, like, completely made up stats here, and this is just for my argument's sake, but, like, you know, if 5% of the kids at school are gay, you know, nowadays, you know, back in our day, 3% of that 5% would be hiding it. And nowadays, there's an extra 10% who might be a little bit gay and happy to go to, you know, wear a rainbow flag t-shirt and are super pumped about all that stuff, which is lovely, which is absolutely lovely. And you know, they might be, you know, identify as non-binary or whatever. And I'm sure that all the right-wing newspapers are going mental because all our teenagers are turning gay or whatever. And actually, I think a lot of those teenagers, you know, we have a little joke with our daughter. You know, she's a lesbian, and she'll be chatting up a girl at school who's or a you know, a non-binary kid or whatever, that is a polyamorous pansexual, even though they're only 15, you know, and there'll be, you know, she'll be chatting them up. She's looking for a girlfriend or whatever, and the other kid will be, well, yeah, I'm a polyamorous pansexual, and I've got autism and whatever. But I'm dating Brad right now, so I'm not really interested. And, you know, or whatever. I just use the word Brad because that's the typical American high school name, not because you're called Brad, by the way. And she's realizing that, like, a lot of the kids that are sort of experimenting with the type of, like, different identities that are available to teenagers these days, a lot of them are probably going to come out as straight one day. It's just really funny, you know. And there's no judgment. I'm absolutely happy for everyone to be whoever they want to be. You know, I feel like we're a very, like, pretty liberal family, and we go to the Pride celebration with her and all that, very supportive. You know, we used to have a conversation back in our day when we were kids. You know, could this kid be gay or whatever? You know, maybe he is or whatever. You know, you might get a sense that someone might be, you know, lesbian or gay, and maybe even they don't know. And I feel like nowadays it's the pendulum swung so far the other way that there's quite a few gay kids where we're sort of like, I'm looking at my daughter and she's looking at me and we're sort of chatting and we're like, I think Kelly's actually straight because she's had 3 boyfriends and only 1 girlfriend, but she was only holding hands with that girl. She wasn't really kissing her, was she? So I don't think they're really a real couple yet, you know. Stuff like that. It's really cute. It's really fun to help her try and navigate all this because
I mean, I've got all of this to come because my little girl's a toddler, but, you know, another decade she's going to be in high school, and I've got a minefield to walk through.
I'm sure things will change even between now and then. You know, it does every few years. So
it's great that young people can feel free to be themselves, express themselves, because at the end of the day, like, who you fancy and who you go to bed with is really no one's business but your own. And I don't like, again, old white guy, I don't get why it's become such a big thing for people to have a problem with who someone else goes to bed with. Like, it's none of your fucking business. They're not going to bed with you. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. I have trouble with sort of our generation, and it's usually on these type of podcasts. Like, everyone's trying to regulate what teenagers do. And I think the terms in how we talk about how teenagers talk about things has changed, but I don't think anything's really changed that much.
I mean, if we were putting on social media everything we did as teenagers, people would be trying to regulate us. It's just they didn't know about it.
Oh, mate, yeah, totally. I have a joke with with our teenager. I've got one of these like Oculus Quest VR helmets, and I'll have it on, and I'll walk up to her because it's got this like pass-through thing where you can like see the outside world through these little cameras or whatever. I'll walk up to her and go, Magdalene, that's enough screen time. Get off your phone. You know, and at the same time, I've got a massive helmet strapped to my head. So, you know, just to joke with her that, like, you know, and you even see that with the boomers, the amount of 60-year-olds I see playing, you know, gambling games on their phone or whatever. I'm like, nothing. Yeah. Everyone's doing it. We're all doing it, you know.
Yeah, you know, I've got to try and consciously regulate screen time myself, because you just do get into a hole. You pick up your phone to respond to an email or to look something up, and you see you've got a bunch of notifications, and you go into another app, and suddenly 20 minutes have passed and you haven't done the thing you originally picked up the phone to do. Like, it is that like overload of information. I'm considering, a friend of mine took all of the social media and notification based apps off his phone, put them on his iPad.
Yeah.
So if he wanted to engage with that, he has to pick his iPad up and do it. And it's only when he's on Wi-Fi, and his phone was then very clean. Yeah. I'm like, that's probably quite a good way of managing it. But at the same time, I run a business, so I need to respond to people. That's my excuse.
It's tricky, isn't it? It's tough. I think it's just about you just have to you need a little bit more discipline these days, because it's like the junk mail that used to come through our front door now comes out of every single freaking device in your home. Yeah. So you can't stop, you know, that's the difficult thing, is like, you know, just keeping those personal relationships and then trying to dispense with all the other attention grabbing nonsense that appears.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have on my laptop, I don't have any notifications for anything, so that when I'm working, I am not distracted. But as soon as you set a video rendering, or you're saving a picture or something, you pick your phone up, and then suddenly you're like sucked into that hole. It's hard being an old white dude.
It is, tough times.
I guess, I mean, should probably start wrapping things up soon. It's getting a bit late here, but I'm interested in, like, where can people find out more about you? Because I think you've produced some great content that people will have already seen, but also some content they might not have done. Like Doctor Who Velocity, is that a regular thing, or is that something that you're just doing as and when?
So the main thing I do at the moment that is like attached to me, you know, it's got my name on it, that is sort of like that I put out there, is a fan film called Doctor Who Velocity. It's had a few 100,000 views on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. You can just Google Doctor Who Velocity. And that features my partner, Crystal, who's a comedian. And she plays the Doctor, and then, you know, a bunch of local friends, actors, kids. So a few people from England in it as well. There's a sort of community of like Doctor Who fan film nerds online that all kind of collaborate on each other's things sometimes. So I do a little bit of that. So that's probably the main thing that I put out. You could, if you go on iPlayer, you can watch the Mobo Awards this year. I did all the graphics, screens, interstitials, stage artwork. That was the big one that I worked on this year. It's kind of fun. And
that's not a small event, is it? That's not like, you know, a local thing.
No, do you know what I was really stoked about? So I've been watching Gladiators, right? Because I love Gladiators, and just like the British nostalgia for UK Gladiators was just amazing, right? And I've been getting into fitness, so it's kind of fun to see sometimes on the show you get like a 45, 50-year-old dude have a go at the travelator or whatever, and you're like, he's going to blow his knees out, but and then some of them do really well. They do all right, and so I've been watching that, and I always get a little bit jealous when I see a really cool English TV show on. That, if I didn't live in Boise, Idaho, I probably would have a good chance of working on that. And people I've worked with before do work on Gladiators. And a few weeks after Gladiator started, I get a call like, it's we got a thing called the Mobile Awards. It's black music, obviously awards show with live music and everything. And we need you to do all the stage graphics. And so I was like, wicked, because it's big, big arena sort of thing. And I realised it's Sheffield Arena, so it's the same venue as Gladiators. It's just it's almost the same screens. They've just rearranged them because I think they have them on site. So so I had this really surreal thing. I'm up at the middle of the night on sitting at my desk in Boise, Idaho in my pajamas, making graphics that, 10,000 people are going to see on a 100-foot high screen, which was really cool. So that was really fun. And I do all the like nominations packages and stuff like that. So, but for me, the claim to fame was I put graphics up in the same arena as Gladiators. So I was pretty stoked about that. I was like, yeah, I did it. Because like part of it is like, I live in the middle of nowhere. And so, my challenge is, why are you going to call Chris Phillips to do this when you could call someone in Sheffield? And so that's the challenge for me, is to sort of be as efficient and easy to work with, and, cheap enough that they hire me. So
having made all those like independent guerrilla films, a few tricks.
Music videos. You go check out one of Dizzy Rascal's latest music videos. I worked on that. No, there's a music video of Dizzy Rascal. It's like 1 or 2 music videos ago on his YouTube, where he's got loads of old school phones and there's all graphics on them, and it's all like really intense. So you can check that out. I did all the graphics on it, which was pretty cool. I'm going to look up what it was called so I can tell you.
You'd be disappointed. There'll be no funky graphics on this. It's like your name under you, my name under me, and then like a little BW logo in the corner. That's as far as I can stretch.
Yeah. You've got a very retro intro tune, which I like.
Yeah, I made that myself in GarageBand.
No, perfect. So Dizzy Rascal, what do you know about that? It was produced by one of my friends, Alex, who I know from MTV. He worked with a really awesome director whose name's Ollie, and I got to do some graphics on it. So they got me on board for that. So yeah, you can go check that out.
Awesome.
Yeah, those are the recent ones. So the ones I'm not too embarrassed about.
Well, I'm going to put some links to like Emo Rangers, because I think that needs to be seen, and new Doctor Who Velocity, which I really like. Yeah, I'm rewatching Doctor Who at the moment. We're up to kind of the back end of Matt Smith, and I'm really enjoying watching it again. So.
Oh yeah. The new ones look pretty good. I'm excited to see Ncuti Gatwa's like latest episodes that are coming out in May, I think.
So you would have done the female Doctor before the BBC did.
We did. That was actually deliberate. Yeah, we came off the back of Capaldi and we're like, we should do a female Doctor. And we started making it before they announced that Jodie was the new Doctor. So we actually sort of hit the zeitgeist on the algorithm gave us a little nudge because of that. So that was kind of fun.
I mean, looking at Crystal's aesthetic, I think Crystal looks more Doctor than Whittaker does. Like, I think she's got a really good Doctor look.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to jump on the latest Doctor Who episode suck bandwagon. They really like. Yeah. They've got the old what's his name, Russell T Davies back for a reason.
Absolutely.
I'll put it like that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I love Christopher Eccleston, but then I really loved like Sylvester McCoy was my Doctor with Ace.
Exactly. Mine too. Yeah. So that was. We actually had Sophie Aldred is actually in our fan film.
I watched
that. She only did like a voice.
Because that was the one where you were in Sun Hill Police Station, wasn't it? That was so good.
Yeah, and I was like one of the cops out of the bill. Yeah.
I do genuinely watch your content. I really enjoy it.
Thanks. Cool. Yeah, it's just a bunch of random memes stuck together. And we didn't even talk about my main influence is the Beano. That was Roger the Dodger. I mean, this is the guy. Roger the Dodger would have been the kid that put his episodes of Emo Rangers on tapes in the MTV archive before they commissioned it. Like, that is a Dodge. Yeah. So there's
Dennis
that.
the Menace.
And then the other film, I'm going to fall over. Can you still hear me? Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing I had, of course, is the Boglins.
Yeah.
So if you're only listening to this, I'm showing a rubber puppet from the 80s.
But your Boglin video you made for Ollie was, I've shown that to so many people because it's just brilliant. It's so good. And I remember having a Boglin in the late 80s or mid 80s.
Yeah.
Are they coming back, or did you have to like buy that somewhere? Like, did you have to go?
No, they did come back. So that you can buy, if you go to boglins.com or whatever, you can buy new Boglins. Yeah.
Not sponsored by
They did like
Boglins.
a run. I'm not. No, I wish I was. They did a run a few years ago, and you can still get them. So if you need a $20 Boglin, you can get one. So
noted. Yeah, I mean that kind of retro stuff, and that does come through in your content. I think that's why it appeals to me. We're a similar age. We would have had the similar sort of zeitgeist growing up. I can absolutely see some Roger the Dodger going on in your content.
I want to do a because the thing about Doctor Who is it can be a different thing every week, right? Just different monsters. So I bring in all these like weird crossovers that the BBC couldn't do. So we did like a Tron one. We've done Boglins. I want to do a Nightmare one, like based on the kids' TV show with the helmet and he's wandering around a dungeon and all that. So you might see something like that.
If ever there was a show that needed a modern remake, someone's got to do Nightmare, because the kind of VR or even like being in the volume or something it'd be amazing.
Totally. Yeah. Come on, Anglia Television, who has the rights to it. Is that even? Does Anglia TV still exist? Like, I don't know. Probably some huge conglomerate now, but
spellcasting and goblins. It was just quality television.
When they die, they'll fall down a hole, and he's like, "Ooh, nasty." Yeah, it's brilliant.
All
right,
well,
I could do an hour and a half on Nightmare. So.
That needs a remake. But all right, well, thank you so much for coming on. I'd say you can get on with your day now, and I'm going to get on with my evening because I'm living in the future. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Chris. So Chris Phillips, filmmaker and Dodger extraordinaire. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Brad. I'll see you next time I'm in England for another parkour lesson.
I hope so.